I worked for, Macintosh Laboratory, was a U.S. company, and it was had a really closely held. It wasn't public. It was the book value was about $10 or $11 million at the time I was working with them, and this is going to work. And we sold it to a Korean, actually a Japanese company the first time. What do you think we sold it for? Just a guess.
50.
Yeah, pretty close. 30 million, right? $30 million. What's the latest company that just got sold or bought? Oh, LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah.
Microsoft, right? Again, what did they pay? What they paid for? They paid for that value, that capitalized value, right? Now, what happens here? And see this word trust in there? The capitalized value of the trust between the company and the consumer. Can you think of an example recently where the trust was broken?
Volkswagen.
Who?
Volkswagen.
Volkswagen. That's the biggest one, right?
And Chipotle.
And Chipotle, right? Yes. Though Chipotle was wasn't as what's the word? Wasn't blatant. I don't think. I mean, you know, I don't think they had much control over the goods that they got. I don't think, the
Right.
products they got.
But
Whereas
the fact that it was an ongoing thing and they were not able to bring that under control, because when you tell people it's fixed, it's fixed,
That's
it's
right.
fixed,
Hey, look at
that
that.
is a blatant violation of trust.
Ah, sorry, we'll fix it. Hey, look at that. All right, oops. Yeah, we'll fix it.
I thought it was pretty.
You do that, I'm trying to figure this out.
No, you're correct, and that's one of the things that companies need to do right away, especially in the age of social media. If something happens that's bad, you better not necessarily fix it, but you better respond to it quick, right? But I'm talking about Volkswagen, which was a blatant fraud. Is what it was, right? That was fraud. Now, how many years has Volkswagen been in business, right? Many, many years. It only takes that one time to lose the trust and to lose their the value that they put into that brand. Okay. So as you can see, brand add value does add value, doesn't it? Let's take a look at a commodity. Let's take a look at coffee, for example. Right? As a commodity, it's like what, 1 or 2 cents a cup. Okay. You turn that commodity into shopping goods, into products. Now it becomes like cans and bags. Now we get at 5 or 25 cents a cup. Right? Next, we can take it and make it a service, like a Dunkin' Donuts, right? Drive-through and things like that. We're willing to pay 75, 200, 50 cents a cup. Well, how about the experience? Now we know who that is. So, we don't have to say it. Starbucks, we're willing to pay $2 to $5, right? So, when you hear the word everything is branded today, it's actually probably true. I mean, you think commodities can't be branded, but take a look at water,
Yeah.
right? So branding does add value. I mean, you bet it does, right? It really. So let's look at everything can be branded today: consumer products, industrial products, retailers, people, right? Look at our politicians, places. I mean, you remember the Come to Jamaica commercial, right?
Yeah.
Commodities. Okay, let's look at Tyson chicken. That can be great. Look at the different kind of waters we have, right? Whoever thought we'd pay $2 or $3 for a bottle of water, right? We can tap for free. So yes, commodities can be branded. This is a little hard to see up there because it's not big, but I like to look at brand as the heart of, right there in the middle, the heart of the system, if you will. And it reaches out towards, the corporate objectives, obviously, are here. Your brand identity, which flows out into the 4 Ps that we talked about. And then out of that 4P, the promotion, right? Product, place, price, promotion. Then we have advertising, PR, and so on and so forth, right? So the brand dictates, everything we do as an organization. Brand essence, customer experience, seeing, hearing, feeling, right? That's branding. So the name given to a product is your brand. Basically, it's creating a name, a symbol, a design that identifies you as, or differentiates you from other products. And basically, the bottom line is your brand name, right, is your promise to your customer. Right? So when you say Apple, it's not about computers. It's about what Apple promises you as their customer. I'd like to talk a little bit about name mishaps, brand name mishaps, and especially when we get into a global company, right? If you're going to be global, you got to really give a lot of thought to the name. Here's a couple of examples. Brandon Airlines translated the slogan, "Flying leather." If you remember that, flying leather. Yeah. Translated into Spanish as "fly naked." Frank Perdue, remember this guy? I see commercials for him now lately again. Remember his commercial, "It takes a tough man to make a tender chicken"? Well, translate that into Spanish. Right? Right? So when you're a global company, you have to be cognizant of the different cultures and how things get translated. Here's another one. When Pepsi started marketing in China, right? That was great. Pepsi brings good things to life. Well, in Chinese, it got translated to, Pepsi brings your ancestors back from the grave. There's one that's not up there, and it's not so funny actually, but it actually happened. In Africa, most people are illiterate, and there's not a lot of literacy in Africa. So they tend to look at their packages with the photos. It tells you what's inside the package. Well, guess what Gerber did when they went to Africa, right? Yeah. So think about that. A lot of mistakes. When you're working globally, there's a lot of things to think about in a global sense, right? Okay. Choosing a brand name, obviously simple, short, easy to remember. Is it protectable, either through trademarks, something like that? Can you transfer from one product to another? Right? Is it an adaptable brand? Look at. I didn't put a slide of that, but if you look at Apple or Starbucks brands over the years, you can do that in Google search. You can see how it evolved over the years. So it's an The Apple was quite a while, but it changed quite a bit over the years, over the decades. The important thing is, though, your brand needs to own a word or a phrase. That's how we started out this whole exercise. Remember when we did the think of a name or think of a word or a phrase about your automobile? You need to own that. Because once you own it, no one is able to actually take it away from you. BMW for driving. FedEx overnight. You know what? Guess what? When FedEx was developed, there was UPS, there was DHL, there was the U.S. Postal Service that all delivered overnight. Why did FedEx become that? You think of, we say now we FedEx it, right? We don't overnight it, we FedEx it. So Walmart, Nike for performance, Volvo for safety, and of course Starbucks. And you can think of a bunch of others. With the name, you own that word, that phrase. That's very important. When you think of brand names, obviously there's lots of different ways to look at it. We can look at descriptive names, acronyms, and today we've got all kinds of acronyms. Twitter, Uber, right? Ursa. Right? I don't know where that came from. How did you develop the name Ursa?
That actually just came from, there's a little bit of connection. Space company and...
From the constellation?
Yeah, it's from the constellation.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that could be a metaphor, things like that. So, and again, we do another exercise real quick. I won't go into it, but the name, the brand has to trigger an association in your mind. It has to trigger some kind of feeling, right? It should trigger some kind of emotion. And again, a brand represents the value, a promise of value of some kind. But there's the problem we have, right? I talked about focus earlier, right? Fear of focus. The problem with most products or companies is that they don't think they can be that narrow, that sharp, right? Because they feel they're going to lose other people. So that's one of the things that we need to, get rid of it, I guess. All right. So this is, if you want to look it up, Fuse workbook. It's again, this is normally a workshop. We actually, it's a workbook, really good workbook on how to develop a brand name. It goes through a series of steps and exercises, multi-page things. It's pretty cool. So, just to kind of recap, positioning versus branding. Positioning if you think of in terms of lifespan, positioning is actually fairly short in the term, in the scheme of things. Typically 12 to 18 months before we have to either reposition a product, right, or change, what the consumers perceive us to be. Positioning also talks about what's different between us and the competition. It talks about what we call value proposition all the time, right? What is the value proposition? That's what positioning is all about. Whereas if you think about it, branding is more about the personality, the emotional experience, right? The intangibles that we think about when we think of Apple, right? Or when we think of Samsung for some people, right? Or whatever that product is. And the lifespan for branding is anywhere from 5 years to a lifetime. That's why branding is so important, because it can last such a long time. And in Volkswagen's case, one slip and your brand has gone back decades, right? Now you got to build trust again. How long does it take to build that trust? So that's the difference, the main differences between positioning and branding. And like I said, they work together. Positioning is the basis for branding, and the lifespan is a little different. I'd like to end with this little talk by Simon Sinek. He's a marketing person, and he talks about, I think I mentioned earlier about, look, you can pretty much make anything, right? We know how to make it. We know what we're making. Right? Do we know why we're making it? And that's what Apple's talking about. That's what Steve Jobs is talking about. I'd like to wrap it up with Simon, because I think he gives a really good talk on what he calls the golden circle. And let's see, hear it, okay? What's that? Oh, okay. That's all right. If we have audio on. We have audio on.
You just turn it off and you just switch it in the taskbar.
We'll show you audio. Yeah, let me plug it in. Let's see. There you go. Okay, well, let's see. There's audio.
Oh, there you
Okay,
go. Okay.
let's try that. Okay. All right. Let's see if we can get this working here.
So where do you start when you have a program that's about integrating life succession?
Or better, how do you explain other great achievements inspire or do something?
Can't hear that.
Why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access, the same talent, the same agency, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in the civil rights of America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out control powered man flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered man flight? The Wright brothers beat them to it. There's so about 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery. And this discovery profoundly changed my view of how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operated. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way. And it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, what you call it your differentiating value proposition, or your proprietary process, or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose, what's your cause, what's your belief. Why does your organization exist? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. Weird things. But the inspired leaders, the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple with 15 and it gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, user-friendly. Want to buy one? Yeah. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate as personally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, purchase a load, something like that. Here's our law firm. The best lawyers, the biggest clients, we always perform for our clients. Here's our new car. It's way gas mileage, it has leather seats, buy our car. But it's uninspired. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to be great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You ready to buy a computer? All I did was reverse the order of the information. People don't buy what you do. People buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat-screen TVs. They're evidently qualified to make flat-screen TVs. They've been making flat-screen monitors for years. But we bought one. We have with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products. Nobody bought them. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer? We do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people. Here's the best part. None of what I'm telling you is my idea. It's all drafted.
Okay, we'll stop it there, but it goes on, and if you ever have a chance to watch the whole thing. Okay, so essentially what he's saying is people buy why you do things instead of what you do or how you do them. That's how you get into the consumer's mind, is by what you stand for, right? What a company stands for, what your position is relative to others. So, thanks. I'm sorry for all the technical issues.